Hey, survivors, thank you so much for joining us today. Today is a special day. It is actually Mother's Day. And so to all you mothers out there, we just want to say thank you so much for showing up for your kids. Thank you for doing so many things that are unseen. I feel like during Mother's Day, sometimes all we want is just a little break, right? We just want to have a closed door, get a little bit of sleep, have some good food, and no fighting. That's at least what I want. Anyways, we come together today just to honor all you mothers and talk about something that has been tabooed for so many years. I feel like in the last generation, nobody talked about it, and people were kind of like looked down upon if they thought they had it or if they saw somebody else that had it. The truth of the matter is, I love how our society is now and how we've been able to talk so much more about it and how we become real and raw with people who are dealing with this big beast, right? Lacey, what's the big beast in the room?
Big beast would be mental illness.
Yes, mental illness, mental health. I feel like there's so many people that don't know what's going on in their brain, and sometimes we don't know where to go for more help, or if we're dealing with depression, or if we're just having the blues. And with many of you on this group of survivors, I know that many of you have lost a child, lost a loved one, are dealing with extra grief that kind of magnifies already what you're dealing with. So we have here an amazing person. This is actually my sister-in-law, Lacey Nielson. She is amazing. She is a mother of 4. She married my husband's twin. So we have a deep connection. We know how these guys are. They're very similar in so many ways, but so different in so many ways. And we are so honored to have her here to speak to us. She has been a mental health advocate for a few years now, and she has battled it herself, and she's going to tell our journey and tell you how she's become a wonderful mom just through this struggle and the real and raw stuff that we all kind of deal with. So Lacey, thank you so much for joining us. She is from Nevada, and we turn the time over to you. Lacey, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shan. Okay, so today I get to share something with you that I am really passionate about because it is the fire that I have been forged in. And I am happy to say today that I am a survivor because I haven't given up, even though there's been times that I've wanted to. Like Shannon said, my family and I live in Henderson, Nevada. I've been married to my complete and utter opposite for almost 18 years now. And I'm sure that the Lord gets a really good chuckle out of watching us navigate our polar opposite personalities. But he is one of the greatest treasures that I have. We have 4 kids. My oldest is 16. His name is Cade. Beckham's 14. Capri is 11. And Indy is 9. And they have their daddy's DNA coursing through their bones. And they are just as loud and crazy as he is. And so they keep me on my toes and make me old and happy all at the same time. But they are the reason that I have been stripped down to just my bare bones. They have broken me down and built me up and made me who I am. And so I am forever, ever thankful for this journey of motherhood. So like I said, mental illness is the fire I've been forged in. It's something I have struggled with for really as long as I can remember, my entire life. However, for many of those years, I did not realize that anxiety and depression were part of my story. I just felt like other people were more confident than I was, or they were more comfortable in their skin, or they were more talented, or they were less afraid of life. I basically was convinced that they had figured out how to do life and that I was doing a poor job at hacking it. But I kept pushing forward because I didn't want to give up. And so throughout my years, from my young years, the way I survived was by hiding. I would hide and avoid every situation that I possibly could that pushed me out of my comfort zone. I did everything that I could to hide or to fade into the background. So I wasn't acknowledged or pulled into a situation that what I felt was afraid of, but now I've learned was anxiety. So for years, that is what I held on to survive. Then when I got married to this wonderful man who was just so full of life and excitement, I wanted that. I wanted that for myself. And so the way I survived was putting my happiness in his hands by expecting him to fix what I felt was broken in me, which is definitely not a healthy way to build a relationship, but it allowed me to survive. And I looked to him to fix it. Well, when we had littles, I then had to survive differently, and that was through pure responsibility. Here I had these little humans looking to me and expecting and needing me to show up and to participate in life. And so I survived out of responsibility, out of showing up from morning until nap time, and then nap time until bedtime is how I had to navigate. If I can just make it to bedtime, if I can just make it to nap time, I would white knuckle my way through this time of life. Now, there were moments and slivers of happiness and joy that I will forever hold on to, but I definitely look back to these years of just white knuckle surviving. Well, that all worked. All of these barriers that I built for myself to protect myself worked until my youngest was born. And when she was born, I broke. Everything fell apart, and I could not hide anymore. I could not look to my husband to protect me and to hide me anymore. And the responsibility wasn't enough to pull me out of bed. I wanted to hide. I just wanted to stare at the wall and cry and just be by myself. And I would call my husband multiple times a day and beg him to come home from work because I just couldn't do it. And he did probably the smartest thing he's ever done, and that is call my mom. And he called her and begged her for help. Now, growing up throughout all of my years, she was my safe place. She was the one I could go to, and I could talk about all of these ugly feelings that were happening inside of me. And she would listen, and it was a safe place. And so a lot of times when we're feeling these dark, heavy, overwhelming, I can't do this feeling, our minds and society try to convince us that if we talk about it, if we breathe life into it, it's going to take over our life. But what I've seen time and time again, that as we do breathe life into these feelings, we don't try and hide them in a dark corner. It gives us life. It allows us to breathe for a moment. It's kind of like being in labor. And when pain is so intense, all you want is just like a millisecond to breathe. And talking to in a safe place is that millisecond of a deep breath. So here I was in this moment, and my mom shows up and literally picks me off the floor. And after growing up and having these conversations with her, every once in a while, she would say, Lace, maybe it's time to talk to somebody, talk to a doctor. And I hated that because I always felt like that meant I failed. That meant I was failing. But at this time, as she picked me up off the floor and said, Lacey, it's time, I knew that the pain and the fear that I had of talking about these scary things was nothing compared to the pain that I was carrying and trying to hide from. And so that was a turning moment in my life when I realized something needs to be done. This is too heavy for me to continue to hide and run from and carry on my own. So that was the turning point of my journey, when I had been stripped down to my bare bones and all of these barriers had to be removed. So what did I do to change these unhealthy habits to healthy habits? So the very first thing is, one, breathe life into your feelings. Talk about them, share them, get them out there. Do not hide them in the dark corners of your heart. Second of all, asking for and accepting help is one of the strongest, bravest, most courageous things you can and will ever do. Asking for that help and then being willing to receive it not only changes your life, but the life of your family, your community, your neighbors. It changes everything for you and for those people that are able to help you. There are people that have been down this road, even if they're just a half a step ahead of you. But when you're able to find somebody to help shoulder that burden or teach you the tools that you don't have, it changes everything. So don't allow yourself to convince yourself, as I did for years, that asking for help means failure. That's a lie. Asking for help is one of the bravest, most courageous things that you can do. So breathe life into your feelings, ask for help, and accept it. Third, utilize the tools that are available out there. There are so many tools to help with mental health. Now, the thing that's really hard that I often found myself feeling like is, I wish that I had a broken bone or a surgery or something visible to justify my hurt, that I could point to and say, it's because of this. But mental illness is so invisible that a lot of times we think that there's no tools, but there are. The first tool that helped me, that was a game changer, is medicine. Medicine is one of the greatest godsends in my life. Now, that is, once again, a total taboo thing. A lot of times people think that medication is the easy way out, but it's not. Medication is one of those things. It's not a magic pill. It doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't make life sunshine and rainbows. It just allows you to begin your day at level, not in a dark hole trying to claw your way out. I spent years every morning clawing my way out, clawing my way out, clawing my way out. And medication allowed me to be me and start my day here instead of here. Medication, exercise. Exercise was a huge game changer for me, not just with only releasing the endorphins, because that is, I mean, it does release endorphins, it does help, but it also teaches a physical or a mental lesson in a physical way. With exercise, you have to push your muscles to failure. And once your muscles hit failure, that's when you're growing. That's when you're succeeding. And so when we can learn to push our physical bodies to failure to succeed, we train our brains to understand to push to failure means success. It doesn't mean you're failing. It's okay to push past into that uncomfortable place, because that's where we're growing. Another thing that was a game changer for me and that I thought was holding me back was developing my relationship with God. I spent so many years pleading and asking God to take this away. And being so frustrated and thinking, why couldn't I be a better servant if I didn't constantly deal with this racing heart or this weight that I just made me want to run? And I felt like he didn't hear me. But as I continued to move through and continued to build a relationship with a real person, with real God, I saw that he wasn't hiding from me. He wasn't ignoring me, but he was holding me in those moments. Could he have taken this away? Absolutely, he could have. But I'm so glad he didn't, because this is what has made me me. This difficulty, this struggle, this pushing through for year after year after year is what has built me into me. And guess what? I like this girl. And I'm proud of this girl. And I wouldn't be able to say that if I didn't have those experiences, if God would have just taken the hard. So physical exercise, medication, relationship with God, and lastly, something that I didn't even realize was a thing, and that's gut health. Realizing that your gut is so connected to your brain and our emotions and how we sleep and how we feel and the energy that we have, it's all connected. They're not separate pieces. They're all interwoven. Our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, and our gut health all fit in the same puzzle. They all work around each other. So those are the 4 tools that help the seemingly invisible pain. Those are the things that, if you were to go to the doctor, they would have their instruments to help fix a bone or to help heal a sickness. Those are the tools that help to heal the mental illness that we fight and that we battle. Now, the last thing that I learned, I didn't put these pieces together until my 13-year-old, I realized he was battling the same demons that I do. And I saw the anger raging in him. I saw him constantly fighting on things. And I realized that so many times when we're feeling the anxiety, the depression, the weight of mental illness, it's this fight or flight response that we have. Our brains are trying to fix. We want to fix things. If it's uncomfortable, we want to change it. If it's broken, we want to fix it. If it's not right, we want to change it. Our human brains want to fix things. And so as we're starting to feel these stirrings or are battling these stirrings of anxiety and depression, our minds automatically have that pinwheel of death, that we have on our computers where they're constantly thinking. Our minds are searching for, where is this coming from? Why am I hurting? If I can find the source, I can fix it. Well, most of the time, it's not what we think it is. Like, for example, when my kids were little, I used to think once I reach nap time, then I'll feel better. But nap time came and went and I didn't feel better. Or once we're making a little more money, then I won't feel so anxious. Well, then we made a little more money and I still felt the same. And so 9 times out of 10, we are just feeling this anxiety or depression because it just is. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes. It's okay to not fix something sometimes. It's okay to just own the fact that it's hard right now and it's going to be hard and that's okay. So what do? Then we circle back around to the beginning. We breathe life into our feelings within a safe place. We utilize the tools that we have. We, what was the third thing that, we ask and accept help, right? We reach out. It's this circle that we constantly are doing. So as we do this, we need more than anything to share our journeys, not share the destination, not share the final product, not share this shiny social media, I made it, I'm happy, I'm great, but to share the journey. Because it's as we shine light on these seemingly ugly places of ourselves, they become some of the most beautiful building blocks instead of barriers. If we keep them hidden, they remain barriers, but if we shine light on them, they become building blocks. Now, I've seen that not only in my own life, like I've shared with you, but I also watched this throughout my dad's journey with battling colon cancer. Him and my mom were incredible, like absolutely incredible with sharing this journey, with being real and honest, but also hopeful and happy and faithful. It was a balance of sharing the real raw human and the faithful God has control over everything throughout this journey, and not being afraid of the ugly parts. So much so that as my dad took his last breath, I got to be there and watch my mom cheer for him and say, "Good job, my J boy. I'm so proud of you." And it was such a building experience for me to see that in the middle of this like heartbreak, there was still such joy and hope and beauty and love. And then as I've gone through my journey of mourning my dad, mourning that loss, and I miss him something fierce. I wish every day he was here. But it was such a beautiful experience and continues to be a beautiful experience as I watch my mom heal and grow. And I find myself healing and growing using these things that I had to learn at my very bottom, and knowing that my dad's on the other side of the veil, also healing and growing, that it's just such a beautiful thing and such a testament to me that it's as we shine light on what society says is our dark, ugly places, they're no longer barriers. They become some of the most incredibly strong and stable building blocks we will ever have. So yes, mental health comes and goes. We all will experience mental illness differently. Mine is biological. It's part of my DNA. It's who I am. It's always going to be part of my story. And that's okay. Other people, it's triggered by a traumatic event like a death or the changing of hormones, like within pregnancy. We all will cross this path of mental illness in one way or another. And it's so important that we talk about it, that we share this journey and realize it's no different than a broken bone or being diabetic or having cancer. We all have these invisible and visible struggles that can become building blocks if we're willing to share them and use the tools that are there and the people that are there around us to build on them. So what do you do if you find yourself holding on to these feelings, or you see somebody else? You guys, we have lost so many people, so many good people that have felt like they were a lost cause, that have felt hopeless, that have lost their will and their drive, which I have found myself there. We've lost too many wonderful people. If we can share this journey and be there to help uplift and carry one another, if we can save just one more life, then it's worth every single word, every single vulnerable tear. It's worth it. So there's so many resources. I started with my OBGYN. You can start with your primary care doctor. You can turn to your mom and say, Mom, I need help. Find somebody. Fix it. And she'll pick you up off the floor and take you there. We can start with our ecclesiastical leaders. We can start with a suicide prevention line. There are so many things out there. Just a Google search. How do I find help? Because it is there. If you need a little bit of help, a little bit of hope just to cling on to for that moment, hold on to some of mine. You can take some of my hope, and I will hold that space for you until we're ready to pick you up off the floor and take you to where you need to be. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today about surviving and mental illness.
Wow, Lace, you're amazing. I even learned more from your story, and I just want to hug you.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so blessed to have you as my sister, and I just want to get closer to you. Just hearing your whole story and knowing that I haven't been there as much as I wish I could be or knew to be. And I think that's what we all have to learn is like, sometimes we do hide behind closed doors, you know. Sometimes people with loss, we hide behind closed doors because we don't know how, don't want people to know how weak we are. Mm-hmm. And so we don't share it with anyone because everyone knows that it already sucks, but they don't want to like be a struggle to anybody else. And so I really appreciate you telling us that you found joy after your father did die, because with mental health, with your mom, with your dad passing, that's a hard struggle right now, right? Like right now you're living it. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. And you guys, we have been honored to have Lacey, this beautiful soul, in and out. I just think she's amazing. And thank you for sharing your journey. And I hope that all of us will take a little bit from her story and come here as survivors and know that we are here for you. We want to connect with you. We want to serve you through just connections and through relationships. And it is so true that God needs to be number one, and you need to develop that relationship because he can help us where we cannot get help or where we don't know how to find help. So thank you so much. Thanks, Lacey. Happy Mother's Day. Is there anything you want to say to those mothers out there?
Happy Mother's Day. You guys are amazing. There's nobody greater and more incredible than moms. Gold star to you guys. Go take a nap and have a Diet Coke.
And your kids are waiting for you in the background too, Lace.
Yeah, they are. They're like, Mom, it's time.
Love you guys. Happy Mother's Day. Thanks, Lace.
Bye, guys.